Hi, are you worried about how often you are really truly present with your kids? My name's Jodie Thornton, and today I want to talk about how do we increase how much time we actually spend truly being with our kids in the moment. Now, I have to say, I'm not going to tell you to just make sure you enjoy it more or don't miss it. They're going to grow up so fast, it'll be over so quickly. It's so important that we just don't take on those messages because they're really just focusing on inducing guilt and making us feel like we're not doing enough as parents, and that's just not true. I promise you, I've never met a parent that is just not doing enough. It's always there's something in the way of us being able to do what will come naturally when we understand what's in the way. So, if we think about why we want to be more present, why we want to prioritize this, I think the biggest reason is actually not like a lot of people will say it's because your children really need that time with you. They really need to feel like connected to you and important for you. And I actually think that we can achieve that in a lot of different ways. But I think that what our presence does is it does a couple of things. One is it helps us to actually enjoy parenting. We're actually in it and believing it and seeing ourselves be a part of it rather than feeling like we are the coordinators, the managers, or the almost like the servants sometimes, like we're just the maid who just makes sure everything happens. When we're present, it actually feels like we are getting something out of this relationship too. And I think that that's a really important thing for us not to skip over. The other thing that I think that presence really does is the more we are present, the less we get those pangs of guilt and feeling not enough when our kids say, "Why won't you play with me?" If we're not having moments of presence during the week, then what happens is when those moments come and they're really sad, we feel this pull of, I am just not doing this well. The more we're present with our kids, the more we feel confident. When they do that, you're just not playing with me, then we know, sweetie, right now I'm not playing with you, but we will play another time. And we can feel that, like, we don't just say it because it's the right thing to say. We feel confident and comfortable in that. And I think that those couple of things are really important for us. So when we think about what gets in the way of us being present, a lot of it is the never-ending to-do list. And some of that is what we now refer to as the mental load. There's a lot of conversations about the mental load for parents and how, generally speaking, in your heteronormative relationships, that the woman would take on the mental load. And for same-sex partners, sometimes there is a situation where one of the partners is the one who takes on the mental load and the other one doesn't. Now, I have a little bit to say about this because, in my view, the way we talk about the mental load in this culture is really unhealthy. The way we talk about the mental load is essentially the women have always done the work in this space and the men just don't care and they don't acknowledge it and they don't do their part. And there's no denying that is actually the pattern, and it's obviously not true of all relationships. It's not necessarily always that gender split as well. There can be relationships where it's the opposite way. But I think that there is a sense here where we're so focused on what we're not getting in partnership in parenting that we're not noticing how we can best solve this problem in a way that makes sense for everybody. So the analogy I like to give is that we as the women, we as the partner who's taking on the mental load, whomever that might be, we're essentially washing the clothes by hand in the old washboard style laundries and saying, I will not learn how to use the washing machine because my partner will not do half of the washing. Now, I know that sounds a little bit jarring to hear, but if we have a look at it, the way we carry the mental load is the least, it's not a way we would recommend anyone manage their workload in their workplace. We would, if we had a mental load in our workplace, we would systemize it. We get everything out of our heads. We make processes. We put the task to the person who's most appropriate to handle it. Now, obviously, this is in a workplace where things are actually healthy and run well, which is not always the case. But, you know, the same system goes. We're not going to say, I'm not going to allow myself to have that because it's not always true. So what we want to think about is things like, I put everything in my calendar to the point where the children's library days are a reminder in my calendar. Like, it's the same day every week. And technically, I should remember on Wednesday night, it's time for us to find Alyssa's book. And on Thursday night, it's time for us to find Sarah's book. But I don't always, right? And so the more I pop it into my calendar and it pops up at 6:30 at night, and then, like, I don't think about it, it just comes into my brain. We get everything out of our heads. So I put, if something is annual, so for example, the medical forms for the kids' notes, I put them into, there's one particular drawer that's where the things that have to be done go into, and I check that from time to time when I'm feeling like it, or usually when I'm trying to avoid something else to do. But, you know, it has a system. If we look at things that are periodic, so buying the children's school uniforms, as I buy the children's school uniforms now, I put into my calendar when is the next time I'm going to need to do that. So the change of season or the change of size, whenever that needs to happen. And absolutely everything is either in a calendar or has a system. Now, there's I'm not saying we shouldn't ask for help with the mental load. Absolutely not saying that. What I am saying is we also want to notice who is the best place to do this. So if I do the kids' note, you know, the beginning of the year and you get like a wad thick of notes. If I do it, it's done quickly and it's done easily. If he does it, it's painfully slow and difficult and he doesn't know what all the things are. Now, you could argue that he should be able to do it just the same as I do, but really, that's not efficient either. Like, yes, he should be able to step in if he needs to, and he does need to step in if he needs to. But the bigger picture is, if he's doing things that I don't want to do or I'm not best suited to do, and I'm doing things that he's not best suited to do, we're still contributing equally in the partnership and in the parenting, but we're just dividing it based on the most efficient way to get things done. So it's a really important thing, just to get the mental load out of your head. The second thing we want to do is actually take a moment to center ourselves. So if we think about, we're going to pick up from daycare, and it's been, you know, we've done all of our work for the day, we've focused on our sales targets, we've done all the things that we needed to be doing, and it comes time to pick up. For most of us, we're rushing in to pick up, we're grabbing the kids, we're rushing back to get the dinner. It's all, what's the next thing, what's the next thing? In order to be present, we really want to take a moment. For some people, it's just a couple of seconds can be enough. For other people, a couple of minutes can be enough. And it's this idea that, where am I right now? I'm finished my work day. I'm transitioning into the evening. And I hope we're going to have a great night. And if it sucks, I'm going to be right there too. Like, not expecting that just because I center and ground myself before I go in to pick up, that magically the kids are going to have no issues and no big feelings and we're not going to have any dramas. But really looking for, we can be present at pickup. We can be present, you know, trying to order the groceries. We can be present doing all of these things, but it does take a moment to really come in and notice that before we go in. So that transition between activities. I also have a thing where when I finish my business day, I actually have a process, like it's a ritual to close out my day. So I write down what got done, what didn't. I track my income. I write down what my thoughts were about my day. And I actually even do some EFT tapping on my business mindset. And then, like, I'm done for the day, right? So that closes that off, and then I'm ready to start my evening in my home time. So those demarcations between phases of your day can really help. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is that actually it can be quite difficult. So if we've lived a life prior to children where we might have had some forms of presence. So like if we're relaxing with our friends or with our partner, if we're having activities that we enjoy, we might have been really present for those. But most of modern society doesn't spend a lot of time in that really present state. We spend a lot of time, I've just got to get through my workday, I've got to focus on my tasks, I've got to get these things done. So it's not that we were like fully present in the past, it's that usually there was just more space in our life. There were more times where we could be fully present, and there was more space so that when we were not fully present, we had almost like recovery time, right? So then bring children into the mix, there's so much more to do, there's so much less free time, there's so much less control, often less sleep. So those things all together kind of put additional pressure on it. But often we've not had, like, we're not really used to being fully present in everything we do anyway. So start small and increase. So one of the things you can do is when you're, say in the evenings, you've done the dinner, it's time to have a bit of a play, you might say, I'm just going to do literally 3 minutes of presence. And we're going to do it, we're going to play Barbies, and I'm just going to be, in those 3 minutes, I'm going to be fully present, and I'm going to be noticing what's going on. So I'm just choosing 3 minutes because we just want to have that little window where you allow yourself to be present. Part of the reason why you want to start small and build up is that as we sit still and be present, it's going to bring up all of the stuff that we've been like managing by staying busy. The stuff could be worries about your business results. The stuff could be worries about your parenting. The stuff could be worries about your partnership. The stuff could be worries about your friendships. It could be the fact that you've got no time to yourself. There's all this stuff that we are not paying attention to, and it's really, really common for us parents because there's so many pressures. There's all this stuff that's just sitting there that's not getting dealt with. And when you create space for presence, like you notice it all. It's all going to come up, right? And so that might look like, how many loads of washing have I got to do, and what are all the things I have to do before I go to bed. But it also might come up as tears of, I can't believe this, like I don't do this very often. I don't play with her like this very often. All that stuff can come up and be really upsetting. So we start small and build it up. But also, when you're starting small, give yourself something to focus on. So that might be, when we're playing Barbies, what is it that she likes to say? What words is she using right now? What vocabulary is she using? Is she developing in the way she's using her grammar? Which games really light her up? Is she actually enjoying this, or is she just wanting to play? Is she using this to relax herself, or is she using this to energize herself? Like, the more you can kind of give those activities for your brain to focus on, the easier it is for you to stay present without the avalanche of stuff kind of landing on you. The last thing I want to say is actually something a little bit of a tangent, but I think it's really important because when we're thinking about all of our lack of presence with our kids, what is the number one thing that's in the way is how much time we spend in parenting activities that are difficult. So I'm talking tantrums, I'm talking endless negotiations, I'm talking getting them to do the things they need to do in a small amount of time. If you have the parenting skills that very rarely any of us were raised with, and that are very rare to be able to find a way to learn them well, if you have those skills, then all of those activities don't take very much time. So tantrums are a couple of minutes or a couple of seconds rather than, up to an hour. Your issues around getting them to listen don't take very long to deal with. The issues around them being like flat out defiant or negotiating, just coming up with 1,000 different reasons why they have to get their way, all of that stuff takes so much less time if you have the parenting skills that are really just not common in this society. So that being the case, that's something that I highly recommend getting some help with. And I want to look at, how do you know it is time to get some help? parenting should not be draining. And I know that that's not something that people say a lot. A lot of people say either if you're doing it right, it's draining, or yes, it's draining. That's just the price you have to pay, or we're sacrificing for them down the track. All those things are really common. None of it's true. You don't have to be drained in order to parent. There is a way, no matter what your circumstances, there is a way for us to get to a place where your child is getting what they need and you're getting what you need, and we're comfortable and relaxed and happy in the process. Now, that doesn't mean that there will never be any big feelings. There will be. But when they come up, it's not draining for you and it's not draining for them. So if your parenting is draining, I highly recommend getting some help, and I would love to be the person that helps you with that. The second thing is how much time things are taking. So your negotiations should not take very long. You're getting ready for going out in the morning. It should be pleasant. Like there's not necessarily that there will never be difficulties, but it shouldn't be something that you actually are dreading. If any of that is happening, again, I highly recommend getting some help, because if you can shift into, some of it is just the communication skills that none of us would, or probably not many, I always worry about saying none, but very few of us have been raised with the parenting communication skills that are needed. And then part of it can be about what are the things that are impacting us, which might be culture. I have a lot of people will tell me, oh, I'm a bit too indulgent of my child, or I know I shouldn't do such and such. So all these things about the pressure about what we should and shouldn't be doing. And some of it is not helpful at all. And some of it, if we can recognize that we're actually doing really well in that space, but we're still pressurizing ourselves. And then the other part might be your own baggage. So it might be that you are very afraid of your child having big feelings because you're worried about what that means for them. It might be that you are avoiding conflict. It might be that you are trying to get them to get what, and just finally get what they need so that you can have enough space to get what you need. There's all of these things that could be happening that we can actually shift pretty quickly. Like depending on what we're working on, sometimes it can be just a single session and we just clear out whatever was the issue that's in the way. And sometimes we want to go dig deeper, and if we're actually significantly changing your skill set and looking at your own baggage and what you want to create in your relationship with your child, then maybe we'll do it over 6 months and do a really much deeper process. But either way, if your parenting is draining, if you're feeling like you're not getting enough time to be present with your child during the week, if today's tips are enough to shift things for you, that's fantastic. But if they're not, I highly recommend reach out and let's have a session. So you can email me, jody@jodythornton.com. The link is in the description of this video. And send me an email. We will organise a time to have a discussion. You can give me a brain dump of everything that you are not comfortable with in your parenting, and I can tell you how I might be able to help you with that. So I hope this has been really helpful. I'd really love to hear in the comments what has resonated for you, what you'll try to do differently, and bonus points if you come back and tell us what difference it made. That would be fantastic. So thank you so much for having me as part of your village.